Are you ready to get into a Game Boy retrospective, Tyler?
I thought you'd never ask.
There is only one place to begin.
Yep.
And that is with the DMG.
Yep.
My pride and joy.
Yep. And this predates my personal ownership of any hardware. So I'll let you take the lead on this and I'll chime in where appropriate.
Well, this predates even our births. So
that's true too. That's a good point.
The DMG came out in North America September of 1989. Now, 4 years later, I would be exposed to the DMG.
Yeah.
And what a time. 4 or 5 years, you know. As soon as I had just enough mush in my brain to comprehend holding a device,
yeah,
I was playing Tetris on Game Boy. And that love has carried on almost 30 years, you know. And it really, truly is one of my favorite systems. To this day, we have things like Switches and 3DSs. Nothing is ever going to top an original Game Boy to me. That's my favorite handheld of all time.
That's beautiful.
Truly. The big thing about the Game Boy, you know, I could go on and on about the form factor, the minimal tech visual representation that I just love so much about it. But the library of the DMG is really something to marvel at.
It's pretty impressive, yeah.
We've talked before about how you had, you know, the NES was right before this. And basically the Game Boy was the idea of a pocket version of the NES. So you get a lot of games that were same. But I found it incredible that a lot of these standalone Game Boy games, like Link's Awakening, Final Fantasy Adventure, games like that, they stand so apart from the NES, but in their own rights are incredible, beloved games. We talked about it before when we were first discussing doing this, how something that was meant to be a portable alternative can ultimately give you a desirable experience.
Absolutely.
To have you sitting in your bed playing this thing because the game is so good and you're actually neglecting a home console. And that is what it is, bro.
That is. I think that's
the power of the Game Boy.
It is. And it's real. I mean, that is something that I personally experienced with handhelds always. Like, there's no difference in my mind, you know, between the quality of something like the Game Boy versus the other consoles of that era.
Which is why we get so hype when we get any, like Link's Awakening on Switch. That's why we get so hype about this type of thing, because any revisiting of a Game Boy classic, fresh, port, whatever it is,
it's a happy time.
It's a happy time. It also makes me think of the happy times when we were getting games in pawn shops, man. I always talk about the pawn shop days. And really, original Game Boy is what I got most of. I remember I got Battletoads for Game Boy. They had Battletoads, bro. That's
a good game.
Oh, yeah, it's a good game. But an even better game that I got from the pawn shop is one I still have to this day, original copy, can't believe it. Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins.
That's a big pickup for a pawn shop.
That, dude, you are not lying. Of course I saw Mario and that was over.
Doesn't have to even read the rest of the title.
Didn't give a shit if it was a puzzle game or anything, bro. I needed it. In the selection that was available, you know, you got Mary-Kate and Ashley and Mario.
Yeah.
So that probably is the most incredibly formative pawn shop pickup, was that game right there. Because the Super Mario Land series on Game Boy is incredible.
Definitely.
Wario was the boss of that game, and then would go on to have a starring role in Super Mario Land 3.
Which is amazing.
Definitely. And that's also an incredible game. The big thing that happened for me with the DMG is I feel like that we talked about it a little bit. That's kind of where I fell in love with RPGs. Final Fantasy Adventure, another hype pawn shop pickup.
Yeah.
This was now look, it doesn't play like the Final Fantasy you're used to.
Mm-hmm.
It is more like a Zelda. You know, you're walking around, you're swinging your sword, you're using whatever weapon you have. But these are the very vital times that get us into RPGs.
Definitely.
That get us into things like Final Fantasy. I mean, it goes without saying, we got Metroid 2 on the Game Boy. Now, we love to see Metroid, and we love to see Metroid handheld. We'll get more into that later on in discussion of this. So
yeah, on and on.
But the library is something I can go on and on about. As far as renditions of the Game Boy, I own the classic 89 DMG, the gray with the pink buttons. You know it, you love it. That's my favorite device of all time. But they would come up with the Play It Loud in March of 95. Now that's what I have modded. I have the mint green Play It Loud. And you love to see iterations. I mean, that's something we're going to talk about in this retrospective is the iterations that came out for these devices.
Definitely, yeah.
Updates and refreshes that Nintendo does it to this day.
And that's what keeps us coming back.
No doubt. Moving forward a little bit to the Pocket, a form factor that ultimately would become the Game Boy Color, if you ask me. I think with the Pocket, they really found that shape that they were going to definitely use for the color. And that's the most sleek representation there really is if you're playing unmodified original Game Boy games on basic hardware. That the Pocket has the best screen I've seen regarding 8-bit.
Yeah, the Pocket was my first experience with the original Game Boy. I never owned one, but I had a family member who did. And I thought that it was mind-blowing when I first came across it because I had no idea.
Yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing. I have a platinum one that is basically untouched. I can't even bring myself to play it. It's so flawless. It's just a beautiful thing. But I could go on and on about DMG. Time to completely enter the conversation on the color, Tyler.
Yeah. Yeah, the color was I actually just kind of really put this together right before the podcast as we were getting our notes together. But the color was my first ever game system that I owned that was mine, right? I had a PS1 that I shared with my family. Of course, I played it quite a bit, if not the majority. Same with the N64, even more so. But the Game Boy Color was mine, right? Like that was mine and mine alone.
As a disclaimer, I also wanted to mention we're talking about Pokemon in the color part of the discussion.
I know. I figured as much.
DMG aside, I thought that it would be appropriate to talk about all Pokemon on Game Boy.
Starting
DMG
with the color. Yeah.
Together, yes.
Yeah, definitely. And that leads me exactly into the next thing I was going to say. The first game that I guess was ever mine fully, I'm pretty sure was Pokemon trading card game for the Game Boy Color. I got that game about probably a week or two at the most before I had Pokemon Gold. And that was my first, main series exposure. And, it would have been my second Game Boy game and all that at that time. But just Pokemon trading card game, it was such a natural segue because I had already been collecting the cards. And so it kind of like allowed me to shift into the Game Boy and just like handheld video gaming so easily because I already knew the rules of the Pokemon trading card game and everything. So it was like a perfect match for me, And
Pokemon TCG is probably the game that is most comfy in my DMG these days.
Absolutely.
I mean, I find myself, like I said, sometimes getting on there and just opening the boosters and then killing it, turning it back on, opening boosters just to see what I get.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a time when I was working on getting all cards available on my like actual physical copy. Never quite made it, but I did get pretty close. So
That's awesome, dude.
still a game that I'll pick up and play even to this day.
And that says a lot, because that can be said for me also. I mean, now they haven't come out with a proper TCG cartridge system game like that for a while.
No, not since 2 in Japan.
We will always go back.
Absolutely. There's a fan translation of 2 for English that is available on the internet in places, and I still really want to play that.
I do too. Really bad.
I tried downloading it one time, couldn't get it to launch on the emulator I was using. Hypothetically.
You gotta go on Retro Achievements, man. Retroachievements.org. Check it out.
Yeah, I'll have to. But I really would love to play number 2 just because of how much I love the original game. But I had the purple Game Boy Color. I can't remember exactly what the official color was. Like the atomic. No, what was it, Sterling? I cannot remember.
Yours was purple. Mine was atomic purple.
Atomic, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
because so I had the translucent shell that was purple. You had the solid purple boy.
Just a straight up purple, like you would see on the like on Pokemon Stadium when you play the Game Boy Tower. It's like that exact same purple.
It's the one I have that I acquired recently that I'll be doing some work on.
Excellent. I didn't know that.
Might have to bring that to life and maybe bring you some nostalgia in the mail.
We'll see. Well, I don't get too ahead of yourself on that. But yeah, I have big love for the Game Boy Color. I mean, it's got some of my favorite games to this day, even outside of Pokemon, like Yu-Gi-Oh! The Yu-Gi-Oh! Game on Game Boy Color was absolutely dreadful, but I loved it. It was just like the first exposure I had to playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Outside of the card game. And it's so funny because I never really put it together how big into just the trading card thing that I was, just because these games just felt like normal games to me. And I just played the trading card game in real life as well. But it's funny how it all actually ties back together.
Definitely, man. We were into Pokemon on Game Boy and trading cards at the same exact time.
Definitely.
It reminds me of the origin story, man. I traded a Digimon deck for a brand new Kaiba starter deck on the bus.
Wow.
And felt like a legend.
And you were. That's a fleece.
That was a fleece, bro.
That's a fleece.
I had some sick Digimon cards, but I kind of realized, oh man, nobody's playing. But then one day some kid starts looking at him and he's really into him. He's like, I'll trade you this whole Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Little did I know this was a literally just opened, every card in it, Kaiba.
That's amazing.
And what really sold me was I'm going through it, and of course you see the blue eyes and you're like, I've heard of this.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm going to go ahead and make that trade.
Yeah.
And that was the launch. Yeah. But TCG, Game Boy, they go hand in hand.
Definitely.
For multiple reasons. Something big to me on the color was Mario Sports.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
We really started to see the handheld beauty of the Mario Sports games. Before they were really tagged generically, and the games were good. I mean, golf on Game Boy, tennis on Game Boy. These games are good. Mm-hmm. But we really start to see the Mario flair, the RPG introduction. The Game Boy brought that in. Mm-hmm. Mario Golf and Mario Tennis on the Game Boy Color. Incredible games. Big reasons why, along with the 64 ones as well, why that managed to be such a long time love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, we can never forget Super Mario Bros. Deluxe. Who didn't experience that game on the color?
That's an important one. That's an important one for sure.
For a lot of people, it was their first exposure to the original Super Mario Bros.
Definitely.
And I mean, the color is a great place for it, because if you think about it, this is the first full color handheld format that they can present the game as it was originally presented.
Most definitely.
So that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I still have my copy.
The shining stars of that era just the second gen Pokemon games, far and away, just the amount of content in those games, I feel like was unmatched for most other things in that era on that console.
Yep, and then Crystal being the first one that you can only play on the color.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Only on Game Boy Color, the first one.
And it had even more in it.
Yep, and I know we've had our differences, but I still really like playing Gold and Silver on a DMG.
I can't imagine that.
I love it. Absolutely love it.
I cannot imagine that.
You just haven't seen it on a pocket screen, bro. That's all.
I have actually.
Oh, then what is wrong with you, bro? Come on. It's beauty.
There's a simple joy.
It could be a simple joy, but it's very effective to me. But of course, things like worm lights, bro. Come on.
Oh yeah. It's so funny because when we talk about Pokemon, we really can have an entire sub discussion about peripherals and accessories, because the link cable was integral to the experience, and it was the most finicky, painful, but glorious situation to try and organize who has them, try and get people together, and try and get it to actually work right. And like, it was very time consuming, but man, when you got in there and started battling your friend or trading Pokemon, the dopamine was flowing because there's nothing else like that.
It really speaks to an accessory whenever without it, the game is single player. With it, it's multiplayer.
Absolutely. And that was one of the most important features of all Pokemon games was the ability to play multiplayer. And that's something that we haven't really touched on too much in the entire Game Boy discussion so far, but it was intended to be multiplayer pretty much from the start, which I think is awesome. At least when you started getting into games like Pokemon and other stuff in that era.
It did not hurt the sales of link cables. That I can say with confidence.
But it's just such a novel concept that not only are we going to give you a game console in your hands that goes in your backpack, but you can also play with your friends multiplayer just like you would do sitting next to each other on the couch.
Definitely.
And I think that's amazing.
With the TV screen out of the equation, with the controller ports out of the equation, they integrate it. They make it work.
Yep. And for
all the
for all the negativity ish that I started with, saying it's finicky and hard to get working, like we had little issues even as 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, like actually getting it going, which I think is pretty impressive.
We were pretty crafty, dude.
We were pretty crafty, but the fact that it was usable enough to where we just made it happen. It felt like a no-brainer to us. We just kind of knew exactly what to do. It's amazing.
Yeah, it goes back to that basic tech, like so basic but charming that we could even make something happen.
Yep. At 6, 7, 8 years old.
Yep. And an impressive thing about the Game Boy in general is that the color came out November of 1998.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's almost a decade after the DMG. So the DMG had quite the lifespan.
Absolutely. I feel like it almost got broken in half by the Pocket, right?
But the game library did not change.
No, I know. But I'm saying that the Pocket's release it almost refreshed the entire era for that console.
Oh, definitely.
Because it was such a substantial improvement.
Yeah. The sleek form factor, it hit a note much more extreme than something like, for example, the OLED these days.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about a much more drastic thing. Like,
definitely. Yeah. I mean, no question.
A lot of people complain that DMG was bulky. The Pocket solved that problem by literally being called Pocket because it's a thin, sleek Game Boy. That really resonates with people. And then people who have had a DMG are going to buy it too.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got old customers, new customers. I think you make a great point that it really did kind of like mid-cycle refresh the Game Boy and ultimately prepare them for the color.
Yep.
Because they're pretty close, the model designs. So obviously the market was telling.
What was not close was the step into the next generation, being the Advance.
We're talking about a big jump here.
A big jump in design choice. Pretty much a radical redesign.
We're talking the introduction of bumpers, L&R.
And we at the beginning were like, we will never need these because we were so used to playing Pokemon. Like,
but then you play Mario Kart Super Circuit,
and you need them.
You break that button.
Absolutely. This is one where I actually had the Atomic Purple. That was my GBA at first, if I'm remembering correctly. I think they had the same color scheme like for the launch GBAs as they did the Game Boy Colors.
I think that's what's referred to as the classic GBA.
The classic
I had that
GBA.
One as well. It's just the purple
simple,
one, man, with
beautiful
the white purple system, white buttons.
Yep.
That was like the classic.
Mm-hmm.
And
because I was a very early adopter of the GBA, fortunately.
Definitely, I remember my little brother got the platinum one.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to have some clear definition between whose is whose.
Absolutely.
That I'll say.
But the GBA is where I feel like the game diversity and just the volume of games really got ratcheted to the next level, because this is the era that we had games like Sonic Advance, which was just one of the best 2D Sonic games that's ever been made, in my opinion. It's right up there.
It's a highlight, dude.
Yeah. And then,
Chow Garden hype.
Chow Garden was worthy of its own entire game. And it was just a side sub game in this GBA game that you would never even give a second thought to until you actually play it.
Till you get home from school and hop straight on that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. It had infinite replayability. So I can't remember exactly what the subtitle is, but the Spyro game for GBA, that's something that I got around the same time that I really thought was quite a good game.
I actually didn't think the Spyros on GBA were very good.
Anything's good when you only have 2 games.
Oh, I understand. But after playing all 3 on PlayStation, man,
yeah,
it's a hard sell.
Of course. I liked the one that I had though.
Yeah, I had one of them, and look, they're fun. They're fun, but they're what they claimed from the beginning, that these games are simplified versions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the GBA really broke down the boundary of simplified version and full-fledged game.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was no longer really about a handheld alternative. Like, the exclusive nature of these games to the Game Boy Advance gave them singular charm.
Exactly. That's a good point.
And this is only 3 years after the Color, man.
That was crazy to me.
June of 2001. It's just crazy to think, because the hardware is pushing out much more.
No question.
3 years later, you think about something like Metal Slug Advance, for example.
Definitely.
I mean, think about that on a Color. But a game I want to bring up, dude, while we're on the topic of titles, Superstar Saga, Tyler.
Oh, I love that you brought this up.
Come on, dude. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. This is exactly what we talk about when we mean the handheld outdoing the console.
Definitely. I mean, it took the basic concept. I mean, and you can speak to this more than I can, but I feel like it really took the basic concept put forth by Super Mario RPG in terms of
no question
the aesthetic and everything, and just the game engine to some degree. But it also polished that up a little bit.
As the official ambassador of Super Mario RPG and the Legend of the Seven Stars, I can confirm that statement.
So that needed to be done because that was a beloved game, and they cannot just let that engine and that style and that charm just go to waste.
Now, they did reboot the game on 3DS. Mm-hmm. And I got that day one. I was the only person at GameStop, like I am with some of these releases. and I was so excited. Nothing touches the original look, but just getting that revamped, it deserves it, man.
It does. And that is a very good remake, in my opinion.
It really truly is. They did very well with that.
They did.
To where I wouldn't even tell somebody they had to play the original GBA cart. It'd be ideal, but I feel like you could play that 3DS remake and you will get the experience that game provided. You are getting it. It's just a little updated.
The game style is a natural fit for the two screens. Just being able to pop back and forth between your actions and everything. I mean, it makes so much sense that it actually feels like it was made for the DS in the first place.
It's funny to think that Mario shined on all Nintendo consoles, but when I think about GBA, he really shined.
Definitely. I mean,
we got Super Mario Advance ports of incredible.
We were trying to say the same thing at the same time, because I was literally trying to get out in my own sputtering way. Super Mario Advance, Super Mario World port was absolutely it was pivotal to my life. The reason that this is called the Star Road Podcast is partially to thank from that game.
No question, dude. And it's so funny that these are the games that we all wound up having. Mm-hmm. There were Super Mario Advance games in everyone's library.
Definitely.
I feel like my favorite game in the world that I owned on my GBA at one point in time was the Yoshi's Island port. What a game to have on your Game Boy. I mean, just one of my favorite games of all time, but you take a game that crisp, and we talked about that recently, man. You take a game that beautiful and crisp, and then you condense it down to a Game Boy Advance screen.
It feels like a natural fit.
Unbelievable.
The other one,
all of a sudden, kids, I'm sorry, not to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Then kids have access to Super Mario Bros. 3, Super Mario World, games like we talk about, man. I'm like, these were some kids, like we said before, first exposure.
Well, I was on the bastard child, Super Mario Bros. 2 / Doki Doki Panic.
That was my first exposure to that game as well.
Same. And I loved the game. I really did. I got it on the heels of playing my copy of Super Mario World, on the GBA to its fullest possible completion. And then I got the Super Mario Bros. 2 Advance, and I did the same exact thing, and it felt so natural to me. I didn't realize that was a game with an interesting history until later. Even that being past the game's initial life cycle, we were kids still at this time. I think I was probably 13 when I was playing that on the GBA. But yeah, I loved SMB2 a lot. I thought that the night and day cycle deal with going into the doors that appear only in one part of, the light versus the dark world. I thought that was so cool.
It's so foreshadowing to how things would work, especially in Super Mario World with the doors and changed instances and everything.
Absolutely. And I love that. That's my, that's what I still call out to this day, is the secrets, the little secret things that you can do in these games is what keeps me coming back year after year. Definitely.
All this talk about Super Mario Advance makes me think about how much I love Super Mario Bros. 3.
Absolutely. That's a game that I still don't have that much time into, where I like I have with all these other games, unfortunately.
That is among the frequently played NES games for me. Mm-hmm. I love Super Mario 3, man.
As it should be.
But the Advance, I mean, it's funny because we still didn't have a backlight. So just right off the launch, no backlight.
I still use the same worm light from my Game Boy Color.
Absolutely, no question, and we're still okay with it. We never complained too much, man.
Not one time.
But a little down the line, March of 2003, we get the SP.
Now,
pretty big life changer.
It's so funny because you and I think we're in the same boat where when we own a console and it refreshes, we typically, more often than not, don't end up with the refresh. Would you agree with that?
I would think that's correct, man. We like to ride. If there's no problem, no game changing as far as availability, there's no issue.
The Game Boy Advance SP was a major exception for me because I had to have that as soon as it was out. Neither of us came from a place where we had, everything we wanted at all times. But this was something that had to be done for me, to where it was on the next Christmas list demonstrably, whereas I wasn't always asking for that much. You know what I mean?
Yep. But as a kid, it helps your case when you could say it plays the same games that I already have. Mm-hmm. I just need this one thing, this one gift. That's it for 5 years.
Yep. And it's
just do this.
It's so funny because that was the last Game Boy that played every other Game Boy game prior.
Every single iteration.
Every single one. And I think that's what makes the Game Boy SP, to this day, one of the most desirable pieces of hardware out there, because it has the best form factor, opinion only, but it has
clamshell. I mean, think about it, dude. It really was an answer to a lot of our issues. We were very OCD about keeping our screens nice. Now you can shut it and there's nothing done to the screen. It's peace of mind.
It fits even better in your pocket than it ever has. And the backlight, I mean, that just speaks for itself. Not to mention rechargeable. We didn't have that before. If we did, we were buying these really janky rechargeable AA batteries. But no,
rechargeable. That is probably the most important thing next to backlight, my brother.
I think so. It was a game changer because no longer did we have to pester our parents to get batteries or steal them from the remote and say we'll give them back later. I mean, that's as
long as the power's on, we're good.
That's right. I have my one, like, I don't have my original SP. I have the same one that I did have, but it's not my actual original. But I do still have my original SP charger and my original fat DS charger because they were the same. And I always remember that, and I always kept both of them.
Absolutely. I still have the one that I use for my DS and my SP, and it's got a Metroid Prime Hunter sticker on it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, man, I had the Who Are You black graffiti one.
That's right.
Because I remember when I was looking at the colors as a kid, I even remember being like, I would love that Onyx one. Mm-hmm. And it just so happened that they had the Onyx, but they also, I think for the same price, had the Who Are You, which is just the Onyx with awesome graffiti on the outside of it. So that was the one I got, the one I kept. Didn't get in. I mean, you know damn well, Tyler, when we got one, there was never going to be a second one.
No.
If we broke that thing, it's not getting replaced. It is gone. Deal. So guess what? We always manage to take good enough care of our shit to have them last cycle to cycle. Yep. To the point where we still have some of these devices today and they still function as they did.
Absolutely. I had my SP for a long time and I was heartbroken. I still don't know exactly what happened to it, but I was heartbroken to find that I could not locate it because that's something I always made a point to keep up with. And it's also why I bought the exact same one again because I didn't need or want anything else.
I just want to give pats on the back to us because we took good care of our shit, plain and simple. And the Game Boy is a perfect representation of that. We've touched on it before. We had to take good care of these things.
No other option.
No other option. And I think we did a damn good job. And you know what else? I think we did a damn good job of covering the Game Boy line.
Yep. I'm so happy that we talked about the Game Boy. It's just so informative to our experience, both of us, and I think that it's important.
The one thought that always is in my mind, we haven't done a whole handful of console retrospectives, But the one thought that stays in my mind when we exit them is that I wanted to touch so much more on these libraries, but there's just too much to go through.
There is.
But it really speaks to the nature of the console themselves and the libraries that, we don't even have the time to go through the libraries because half of the games or so are worth playing on the whole library. I mean,
we could talk for a whole 90 minutes about just this one topic, start to finish, and still not feel like we hit on everything.
Yeah. But as usual, man, I think for today on this episode, we did a great job covering the Game Boy line.
Rest in peace / never forget / I still have my, SP, so I
long live Game Boy.
Long live
That's
Game
it.
Boy, exactly right.